Alright then, part 2. Right, link in the description to part 1 if you didn't watch it. But what it is, in case you're just joining us, I'm doing a build video from start to finish, but putting as much detail in as I possibly can in case someone's a brand new pilot or even just thinking about getting into this hobby. It's so they can see every detail basically. And that's what I'm hoping to do. Unfortunately, doing that means the videos are stretching out. Just to put this frame together took over an hour in part 1 because I didn't speed it up, I didn't do any jump shots. If there was a problem, I talked through it. I went through everything. So I know a lot of people won't like that, but this, I am aiming this at the brand new pilot who wants to learn how to set everything up to get in the sky, including the beta flight and everything. Right, well, jumping back from part 1 then, all we've done now is I've took the frame off, right, because we're going to get the electrics in now. I've took these little frigging protector bars out and everything. If you don't know what they are, go watch part 1. Alright, they will be going back in again. I put the motors on, right, they're the pretty zingy motors, right. No, I'm not even going to talk about them. Link in the description, go check them out yourself, right. I'll leave a link to another video that I've made about these motors, right, because I don't want to start waffling because I know this video is going to go on long enough. I mentioned near the end of the last video that there was a pack of 16 bolts left over. A full pack, didn't need to use them. We figured them out, there was going to be for the motors. Right, and I said I won't be using them. Well, I've had to use them because of this protective frame at the bottom. Right, my nuts just went long enough. That sounds disgusting. So I've used them. So it's great that they put the motor nuts in for free. Right, just an added little bonus. If you're worried about these, you get these little plastic tapers. All I've done is took the arms off. Right, slid a bit of heat shrink on so that once I've got this soldered up, right, to the flight control board, to the ESCs, I can slide this bit up that I put on there, just shrink it down and just see if it makes it look a bit neater. If not, it's heat shrink, I can cut it off. Right, to take the motors off, right, I'll tell you what, I'll put a short little a B-roll video. I can't get my words out. Take these arms off, right, in a crash or whatever, is simplicity in itself. If you just loosen the first four bolts here, just loosen them, just one twist, that's all. Right, and take that screw out and that screw out. So the two screws furthest to the back, or the two screws furthest to the front, take them out, the arm slides out in one piece. Hopefully I'll put that little B-roll up so you'll see it. So if you was at the field and you had a crash and you bust an arm, you could easily replace an arm, unsolder the motor wire, slide the arm out, slide a new one in, sorted. But that's just one of them things. One more thing I've done, the antenna mount at the back. Right, this came right as a HD frame for the air unit, and as you'd have seen in part 1, right, this had an extra piece coming up here for the double antennas to come out of the air unit. Well, because I'm fitting the Vista, I've cut that down, but I've left that little notch there and the two little notches on the side for this, so when I plonk it upside down now, lock's the wrong word, but the fasten in, right, and the hold down nice. I'll show you, it'll be easier to show you. They just hook over there and they seem to fasten in quite well to hold down, and that way, right, I can make a little hole here with my soldering iron and run my antenna straight out of there because it's a single antenna with a Vista. So I've done that, I've just turned it upside down and cut the hole, the padding bit out, the connector part, the holes. Well, fuck off, George. You know what I mean, go watch part 1, you'll see what this is. Alright, so I won't need that till the end. I've just cut these wires down a little bit, even though they're not at the right size yet. So now moving on, we're doing the electrics now, so let's actually start the video. Right, I am using the Hobbywing 60 amp 4-in-1 ESC with the new style flight control board. You got a glimpse of it, right, in part 1, but the new style. Alright, let's just look at this bad boy first. I mean, it's huge for starters, but it's 60 amp. Why did I go for 60 amp? Well, first of all, I'm using 6S batteries. Right, I'm building this as a 6S. You could run it on 4S, you could run it on 5S, but I'm building it as a 6S. So I wanted a beefier flight control, beefier ESC, and I also wanted some because of 40 amp. Right, a 35 amp would have done. Alright, but I wanted something that I can put a lot of power into it, blast the throttle, have some really good punch outs and stuff like that. I do love the way it comes soldered up with the wires and the capacitor. Unfortunately, I'm not sure, I may have to remove this capacitor, right, because it's going to get in my road. I noticed that on part 1. If I just slide this in, which is beautiful, you see there the capacitor and the wires here, because of the capacitor, right, the Vista is going to fit in there, and I don't think I'm going to get the Vista in because of this. So what I'm going to have to do, which I may as well do now, is take that heat shrink and just bend that capacitor up a bit. I'll tell you what, the easiest way around is to find out. And this is why the videos get long, because I don't want to do jump shots. I don't just want to come back and say, yeah, it fits. I want you to see, right? Because if you're a new pilot, right, you're going to want to know these things. Right, the Vista. With the Caddx Nebula Pro. This is the good camera, right? This is the good one. The Caddx Nebula Nano and stuff, I've never owned one, but I've seen it don't look good. It don't look good. It'll be going that way. So it'll be sitting there. I'll just move that out the road to the back a minute. That's where that'll be sitting. And if I grab that ESC again, you see, look, let's just line this up properly. Yeah, the capacitor is going to be resting on top of the Vista unit, which ain't the end of the world, you know what I mean? But and then this cables for the camera is going to be a bit tight getting round and stuff. So yeah, it's not going to be perfect. So it's going to be a bit tricky, so I'm going to move the capacitor slightly. Right, just make a little adjustment. Let's put that back because we won't be getting to that just yet. If things come in a box and you're not using them, put them back in the box. Don't just leave them on your table, or I'll guarantee you'll break some up. I have broken frigging flight control boards, cameras and all sorts of stuff. I've left the flight control board on the table, not in the box, and I've been doing something else and just had like a pair of pliers and just chucked the pliers on the bench, and they've gone straight across the flight control board, hit the fets or whatever, and knackered stuff up. Right, well, this will be simple enough. My bloody phone again. Right, jump shot. Okay then, I'm back. Bloody phone calls left, right and centre. It was the same in part 1, wasn't it? Right, I've done this off shot. All I did was take the heat shrink off that was wrapped around the cable and the capacitor, and I just bent the capacitor up a bit, put the heat shrink around that, just a little bit of extra protection, and I just soldered on, measured the wire, cut it, soldered on the XT60. That's sort of like now really. So now let's get the ESC soldered up and start mounting one or two things. I've already actually, I'll just mark these wires out first. I don't want to mark them too short, alright, because if the motor spins the wrong way, you can correct that by doing a quick command in Betaflight in the command section. Right, just change a couple of things and it'll change it. However, the easiest way, right, is just unsolder two wires and cross them over. Right, it's quicker, it's simpler. So I don't want to cut these too short. I want to leave them enough room in case I have to move one. Okay, so this bit, I'll do the first one and then I will jump shot the next three because it's identical, so that would be pointless showing you it completely. Alright, so I'm leaving a little bit of slack, alright, hence the heat shrink at the end to cover all the wires up. But I'm leaving a little bit of slack just in case I need to change the cables of it, or if I make a mistake. You always want a little bit of forgiveness in case you have to change something. It's one of them better safe or sorry situations. Yeah, there's not much there to cut off. Just about the right side of there. Just what I'm doing here, new pilots again, taking a little bit of the silicone wire off the ends. I'll put a little bit of solder on them, a little bit of solder on the board, then solder them together. And when you put a bit of solder on the wire, right, it's called tinning. Don't ask me why. Don't leave a comment saying why is it called tinning. Go watch a soldering video. Like I said, I'm only going to do this one and then I will jump shot because they're all identical after that. So if you're a brand new pilot and you've never seen this before and you're wondering how it's done, as I've cut the wire, I'm just twisting the edge of the wire first before putting the bit of solder on the end. Just so there's no loose little bits of wire sticking out all over the place basically. You want a nice hot soldering iron. I'm not going into that because that varies with depending on who you watch. Me personally though, right, I whack it up to 390 for the little wires, right, and then for I'll start that again, about 370 for the wires and about 380 for the pads. Okay, and make sure you keep your tip of your soldering iron clean, right, and make sure you haven't got a bad arm. Just want a tip. I'll give you, oh, I can't get my words out here, I'll give you a tip which I'm not doing. Ideally you want somewhat fire resistant if you're doing it this way, just to cover up your ESC or your flight control board, whatever it happens to be, while you're soldering near it, because you don't want blobs of solder dropping into your ESC and stuff like that. But I didn't do that, but it's just a tip for if you're not used to soldering. Move them wires out the road. And on this bit, I've seen a lot of people do this wrong. All you want to do is hold your soldering iron onto the pads, right, and then hold it for a second and just touch the pad and the edge of the soldering iron. Told you my bloody wrist, and let it just flow. There you go. Do the next one, it'll be a bit better hopefully. I'll zoom in because I'm only doing this one, right, and it's so people can learn. Yeah, take your soldering iron, put a little dab of solder on your tip, alright, put your soldering iron on the pad, leave it for a second, and then just touch your soldering iron, the solder, to the pad and let it flow. And it really is that simple. It's best to do the ESC, right, while it's away from the frame, just on the mat, right, because I'm fighting standoffs and cables and stuff in the road and everything, and you don't want to do that, but I just can't be bothered taking it off, so I'm sort of like just getting on with it. You notice I said keep your tip clean. That's what I had a bit of old solder on that then, and that's why it didn't bite. Put some fresh solder on, and lovely. Still got some on, so it should still be alright for the next one. Lovely. Just cleaning the tip again. Best to keep the tip of the soldering iron as clean as possible, and then apply fresh solder to the tip of it. Now I'm really in the weeds. There you go. Right, I advise you to get some pliers, tweezers, whatever you want to call them, well, tweezers, right, with ceramic points, right. Yeah, we've got metal things and stuff like that and everything, and I've got a full set of these things, and you can use them for ages, these metal ones and stuff, but if you can get your hands on any, right, I'll leave a link in the description. Actually, I got a set of these and they weren't that expensive, and they're just a ceramic tip, and they're great in case you touch some or whatever. Because it's ceramic, you're not going to get a short or damage anything. Just taking one of the wires, hot soldering iron straight on top, hold it a second, and oh, that's messy, don't like that one. Told you, if you see my hand shaking, no, I haven't been drinking, wish I had. Dirty tip, need a bit more solder. That's better. Alright, I'll tell you what, I'm going to use a different tweezer. I've got a fatter one here, it has a fatter edge on, and might be able to hold things better. In fact, that feels a lot better already. That one really was for super thin wires. Yeah, straight in. Right, I'll tell you what, I'll put that one over that side a little bit. Put it on an angle. I'll leave a link in the description. I'll leave a link in the description to these. Like I said, you got like real fine pointy ones, which I was just using, but really they're for like really thin wires. That's why I was having trouble. And then you've got like edge ones, right, for getting in there and stuff, and then thicker ones. You can get sets of loads and loads and loads. For me personally, I think 3 is more than enough. And then that will just go there. The heat shrink will go over the top and make it look nice and neat, which I'm not going to do yet, just in case I need to swap any of the wires over, in case the motor's spinning the wrong way. But like I said, you can do that in Betaflight, but it's just as easy to unsolder one wire as, you know what I mean, swap them over. So I'm just going to do the other 3, then I'll come back. Okay, now this will be a jump shot. Okay then, right, I've just wired up all 4. Like I said, I've left plenty of cable in case I need to swap any around, but the heat shrink will hide that. Now before you go any further, you need to test you haven't done any mistakes. If you've got a multimeter, fine, that'll work, but the easiest thing, right, is get something like a smoke stopper. Now as this is aimed at new pilots, you might not understand what I'm talking about, right? But I'm not going to go into it. Just go into YouTube and say drone battery smoke stopper, something like that, and you'll find one. There's all different types. There's some with like little fuses in, some with circuits and FETs and stuff, and you get lots of different types, right? But it's just to check if nothing's wrong, and all you do is you plug a battery, if I can, into the smoke stopper. You'll get a green light there, and then you plug your quad right into the smoke stopper at the other end, and if this light turns red, we know we've got a problem. No problem whatsoever there. So we know we ain't crossed any wires, well, not crossed any wires, we ain't got any solder touching each other, the pads, and made a mistake or all like that. So everything's fine at that point. That don't mean everything's going to work, that's later on when you get to test stuff. But at this stage, everything's fine. Now I will mention this because I didn't mention it, and I know somebody may ask. Like I said, 60 amp ESC, so plenty of power. And what I do like is here, where you've got a JST plug, right, there's the soldering pads. They're all there, so if this snaps for any reason, you can solder your wires straight on and straight onto your flight control board. And speaking about the flight control board, I'll just move that over there a minute. This is the new version, and you've got, as you can see better on somewhat white. There you go. No, you're not going to see black. Hope you can see. I'll tell you what, I'll zoom in a bit. That might help. And I'll whack it on the whiteboard. Whack it on the whiteboard. Yeah, you've got your 30-30 mounting holes, right? But you've also got 20-20, so you could have your AC in one place, and I could have this at the back, right, where I'm going to put the Vista, right? So you could, in theory, move stuff around or whatever. It has a pick button. I'm not going to get into that because I don't want to get too complicated for newer pilots, right? This GST connector here, this is what plugs into the ESC. You'll run a wire, and you do get a mess of bits. You get every bloody cable, you even get the nuts and stuff for it, which we're not using. Right, might use them for the Vista actually. But you get all different sizes, you get some loose for soldering up yourself and stuff. You've got a lot of choices here. You've got smaller ones and bigger ones. The bigger ones will be to connect up to the ESCs, and the smaller ones, which we haven't covered yet, this port here, this GST port here, is actually so you can plug your air unit straight into it without using any solder pads. Even the option is there. You've got all the different solder pads, and you're actually only using these top pads here with this GST connector. Well, bugger off. I'm going to ignore that. That's just my phone. I'll ignore that. I'm not jump shotting at this point. Yeah, this GST plug here is for the air unit, and it's them 6 pads there, right? And you've got all these spare pads free. You can't see very well here, right? What I intend to do, and these are your spare TXs and stuff. This will be where I'll be connecting. I'll tell you what, I'll go onto the computer, right, and I'll see if I can find a picture of something, and we'll do a close-up, and we'll have a better idea about what's going on, because this is not great to see. And my camera, if I zoom right in, it'll just blur. You won't see a thing. So I'll just go get it, go find it on the computer, and we'll have a quick look at it there. Okay then, to the computer. Okay then, right, I could not find a proper photograph for this freaking flight control board anywhere, so what I've done is I've took a couple of photographs off the instruction manual just to explain what I'll be doing. Oh, excuse me. Right, this is that GST connector that I showed you. You'll see it again. But this is really made for the air unit, the big one, which plugs straight in. And these are your wires that'll come out. You'll have your RX1 and your ground. Your RX1 will actually be running as S-bus for the DJI transmitter, but I don't use that. I'll be using my Crossfire. And then a ground which also links up to the DJI transmitter. And then you've got your RX, your TX, your ground, and your 10 volts, which is brilliant. So what I'm planning on doing is taking the plug that goes in here, removing these two wires, right, these first two wires, and then just running them 4 wires right across to the Vista, right? Because this would be this would be like your S-bus and your ground, right? So I won't be using them. So just run them 4 wires here, the RX, the TX, the ground, and the 10 volts straight across here. The RX will connect up to the TX will connect up to the RX, the ground, and the power levels. Oh, ignore that where I put volts up to 6S. It's not 6 volts. I wrote that out wrong. You see, the Vista, the Caddx Vista, is rated to run off a 6S LiPo. Now, it's a case of it will. Caddx says it will. And there's plenty of people that do run it off a 6S. But there's also plenty of people that's had problems with running it off a 6S. 4S, not an issue at all. 5S, not an issue at all. But if you're running a 6S LiPo, you're better off finding a different way of powering this, right? As it happens on this flight control board, as I said there, you've got 10 volts, right? So that is plenty coming out of there, right? And even if it didn't on this side, on these pads, you've got an extra 10 volts, right? You've got your spare UARCs, TX1, TX2, TX5, RX1, RX2, RSSR. You've got a bag full of options. You get me? So there's plenty of spare UARCs, and this is how I'm going to wire up the Vista this way. Just remove the 2 wires here, which you'll see when I'm back on the bench. And basically that'll be it, because all there'll be left to do is wire up. After I stick a plug in there and solder up these 4 wires onto the Vista here, that's it. Right, the only thing left to do is solder up the antenna, which in my case, for the transmitter, which in my case I'm using the TBS Crossfire Nano, and for that I'm just going to use these 4 pads here, right, which represent ground, 5 volts, RX1, RX2. That's all I need, and that's it. So the only soldering I'll be doing is these 4 cables here, because that's just a plug-in. Okay, fair enough, I will have to solder up to the Vista, but I'm talking about actually on the flight control board. And there is one more bit of soldering I'll have to do. The buzzer, can't forget the buzzer. The buzzer just goes here, right? But it's much simpler because I've got no camera to solder up. Right, I've got no V, which would be 3 wires minimum. I've got no VTX to solder up, which would be 3 wires, well 4 wires if you include soldering up the RSSI, right, from your VTX. But I've got none of that to do. The only soldering I've got, yeah, the buzzer we just remembered, but it's just these 4 pads here, my ground, my 5 volts, my RX and my TX for my Crossfire Nano. And that is it. Okay then, back to the bench. Okay guys, I've just printed off, oh, and maybe ladies, just printed off this picture because that video I just showed you, as it ended, I explained this bit wrong. And if you're going to be wiring up a Crossfire, right, you don't want to wire it up to these 4 pads that I've just said, only 3 of them, because you need to use your TX1 and your RX1, not your RX2, right, unless you use TX2 and R. But what I'll be doing, I'll be using from the back, actually, I'll be using this pad as ground, right, the one next to it, got a red pen here, that will be the live, and then for the TX and the RX, this is where it's slightly different. The second one down, but on the inside, is TX1, so this one will be a TX, and on this side, the third one down, is RX1, right, so they won't match up. You can't have an I'll rephrase that, they have to match up. TX1 to RX1, which would be that one. So they're your 4 pads you would use to connect up your I'm just putting the lids back on the pens. They're the 4 pads you'll use to connect up your Crossfire Nano receiver, or depending on what's what, a lot of other receivers as well, but Crossfire Nano receiver, you can use these 4 pads. So you'll have your ground, right, your power, in this case 5.2 volts, right, your RX1 and your TX1. Now your TX and your RX, and that's where I made the mistake, they must have the same last number, as in 1 or a 2 or a 5 in some cases. There's no RX5 on here, so that must be on a different pad, but your UARCs must match up, as in TX to RX, 1 to 2 to whatever. Now when I run the Crossfire, when I run the Nebula Pro's wires, from the Nebula Pro, the TX wire, which is transmit, will connect to the RX, which is receive, and the RX wire will connect to the TX, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, right, moving on. Oh, I will show you this because I printed out a bigger one as well. Alright, I made this clear, but I've actually got the pins here. You saw all these cables. Well, I picked this one out because it's a bloody big long one. These cables here, as you can see, right, they run, well, as it is here, 10 volts ground, TX3, RX3, forget the last 2. So what I'll be doing in a minute, unpinning, if I can get my hands in, unpinning these last 2 wires, right, because I don't need them. Right, so rather than you could just snip them right to the bottom, but they're quite easy to unpin. You probably won't see from that angle, but I'll see if I can zoom in as best I can, if not do it in editing. But then just lift up these 2 little tabs, you'll see that in a minute, but I just wanted to cover that little bit again anyway. Right then, I'll tell you what, while I'm talking about it, we'll do this now. We'll do this as a first job. These 2 little wires need to come out. Just want to double check on my frame that it's the correct 2, so I'm just checking on the flight control board. I know it is, but it's always best to double check. Yep. So how do you get them out? Let's see if we can zoom in without going out of focus here. I don't know if that's going to focus, I have no idea. It's not the best camera in the world. But what I have here, I've got a lollipop stick, right? I've got an old, I've had this years. It's a lollipop stick, and I've just got an old sewing needle, right, that I've just taped up like mad, and it just seems to be the perfect thing. And all you do, there's these little plastic tabs, and you just gently, in a way, it don't matter if they're split, if you're taking the cable out and you're never thinking of putting it back in again, but you just gently lift it up. I hope you can see that, the way it's just bent up a little bit, and then the pin just slides out. Look, I'm squashing that one back down again just in case I ever use them again. But I found this, the lollipop stick and the sewing needle, works great. And I just push them back in again, and that's it, you see, because that's all wires I need. So now I've got my power, my ground, my TX and my RX. Alright, and I'll be cutting this wire to whatever length I need, which we'll figure out as we go along. I don't want to cut it yet, because if I only need that much, I don't want to cut it down to there, because you're just wasting wire that you might use for another project. I've got boxes and boxes of bits of wire. I never throw bits of wire away. Literally boxes and boxes of different size bits of wire. Some of them are only, well, not that small, but some of them are about that long. Some of them are real long, but got loads of bits of wire and cable in. I also keep, as it stretches over, right, just oh no, they're brand new ones. Where's my old ones? Spare, oh yeah. If you've got a dead battery, right, you're going to throw your battery away, right, cut the cables off and cut the connectors off, right, the balance leads. Always cut the balance leads off of old batteries. So one, I've either got a bit of spare wire, right, two, I've got a spare JST plug, so if on one of my other batteries, right, say it busts, I can take it out, and the same principle of what you just seen, I've got a brand new one ready to go. I always keep my spare, these are all off batteries that I've cut off and had to throw the batteries away. Right, yeah. Now moving on to the frame. Now I've made a mistake here that it's going to be very difficult to rectify. Alright, I should not have soldered these pads on, right, and can put this ESC on at this point yet. I should have connected the Vista up first, because now I'm going to have to be wiggling about. Well, actually there's quite a bit of room there. Just have to somehow get that cable out the road. I wonder if I can just snap, putting a lot of dropping stuff all over the bloody floor again. Bending down, breaking my back. Yeah, that'll do. That's not too bad a space, so really I should have put that in first, because I have to figure out how I'm going to run the camera cable. But no, that's not too much pressure on there, that's okay. Right, so we want the Caddx Vista on next. Get it out again. That way. And the thing is, I'm gonna need to solder all the cables up. Oh, this will be a good point to actually figure out how. Whoa, careful. Right, it'll be running this way, right? So there's your antenna point, so that's where the antenna is going to come out the back, right, up and out. And the solder pads, the easiest way to solder this actually is to take this pad off, but it's got this blue gucky stuff on it, it's horrible. So if you just turn it upside down, there's enough room in there to get at your solder pads. And what I do like, I don't know if you'll see from here, they always put a dab of solder on the lab, alright, on the power and the ground. Oh, let's see if I can get that in shot for you. They always put a little dab of solder. Don't ask me why, but they come like that. So let's just figure out the right size screws first of all. So let's just get a box of screws and make sure we've got the right size screws. Will these fit? This side will work fine actually. Okay then, I've just put 4 little nuts on the bottom. I ain't tightened anything up tight yet, because it's not as if I'm fastening this down straight away. Just need to see where the wires and everything's going to go. So just the reason, as I said, put the 4 little nuts on the bottom, it's not to do with holding these down, right? It's just to lift the Vista up off the base, just to let a little bit more air flow. Come on, you bugger, get in. There you go. Right. So the camera we can figure out, because the camera will go there. We can run the wires wherever for the camera. We'll figure that out. But it's this wire we need to figure out, isn't it? Where this one's going to go and how far. So it's going to plug there. Now we could, in fact, I'm going to put an extra nut or two on the bottom of the ear, lift this up even higher, right? Run these wires underneath, because they're going to solder on here, but I'll be soldering them on the underneath part anyway. But yeah, lift it up even higher, so run the wires underneath the Vista, coming up here, right, and then it'll just come out of here, plug straight into the JST, and it'll all be really nice and neat. Now for your very first build, you don't have to do that. You can just solder your wires on, right, have as much spare as you want, and just for argument's sake plug it in and tuck all the cable down there, you know what I mean. But I don't want to do that. I want it to be neat, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take that off. I need this raising up a bit. I must have some type of, because instead of using nuts all the time, some type of small little spacer that'll fit in there. I've got plenty of plastic ones, but you don't want to be using plastic standoffs with this, right? They get hot. They do get hot. That's why when it's plugged into the USB and you're updating it in the DJI Assistant app, right, you need to have some sort of fan on it. Me, I use, oh, you'll have to wait and see. You'll have to wait and see. You might have already seen it if I've done the video, I don't know yet. But you need some sort of fan on it. Yeah, I'm just going to raise that up a bit. So once I've raised that up, alright, we'll put that back on and then we'll come back. And all I'm doing now is putting some more nuts on this, so you don't need to see that. You don't need to see me screwing bloody nuts in. So another jump shot. Okay then, right, I've added some more little nuts on these screws here so that the Vista stands up a little bit more, so I can run the cable for the Vista underneath, and there's still plenty of air for air circulation and stuff. I've also cut this to length, alright, so I've got plenty of room. I've cut it to length. So the next bit to do, I'll just put the quad out the road. The next bit to do is actually solder up these wires, right? And obviously we need to get them the right way around, because coming from the transmitter, the TX wire has to, which is transmit, has to go to the RX on the Vista, which receives, and vice versa. And the RX, yeah, you know what I mean. The TX goes to the RX and the RX goes to the TX. Right. Okay then. Right, like I said, I've measured these wires, so I just have to first of all take my bloody soldering iron on. That would help, wouldn't it? And then just tin these up a bit, which means taking a bit of the edging off. And all I'm doing is trimming these wires. I'll do this off shot because I've got a bin down here. I'm just trimming a bit of the plastic, a bit of the silicone off the edge of the wire. And that's all I was doing, just trimming a bit of the silicone off the edge of the wire. Right, and like I said, you can take that plate off to get at the soldering pads, but there's no need. There's enough room in there. Alright, it's really tight. I don't know if you need to even see me do this. Alright, but I'm just going to solder up these wires here, making sure I get them the right way. So I know as it's plugged in, actually, I've got that bloody picture here. As it's plugged in, speaks for itself, power and that. And then the next one here that's coming out, right, the next one along was TX. Okay, so that's TX, so that will go to RX on the Vista. Alright, and then that one is RX, so that will go to TX on the Vista. Okay, so all I'm going to do is solder these pads up. Alright, so it's going to be so tight, you're not going to see it anyhow, so I'm just going to do a jump shot, right? I wasn't going to do many jump shots out like that, but I'm just going to solder these 4 wires onto this 4 little pad here, so I'll be back in a second. Right, that's that done. So the power and the ground speak for themselves. The TX from the transmitter, I'll start that again. The TX from the flight control board runs to the RX on the Vista, and the RX from the flight control board runs to the TX on the Vista. Basically, you're just swapping them around. TX to RX, RX to TX. Right, let's bring that frame back, and we'll pop her in. Move these cables out the bloody road again, because we're still not sure about how we're going to sort out this bloody camera yet, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to sort out, because that can be tricky. Alright, so I'm actually going to sort out the antenna for the Vista first. Alright, 2 reasons. 1, it'll make life easier. 2, you never want to... I never want to accidentally power it up without the antenna on. Now the easiest way I've found is loosen these first 2. Some people say just this one, but I find if you loosen that one and that one, it just makes life a little bit easier. And then just get some sticky thing or something. Don't use out metal, just to pull that out of there. Now my antenna, where's my bloody box? Oh god, I've got so much junk on here. The antenna, because if you remember I said I'd cut the mount down, which if I found it here, the mount, and I was going to turn it upside down, I'm going to mount this now, and then it's going to be a case of hold everything in place. Well, yeah, it's going to be a little bit tricky, but at the same time it's going to be the easiest way of doing it. So I'm just going to blast up the soldering iron, figure out exactly where I want to put that mount. So actually bang in the middle will be perfect. Just making a little just starting it off, because it's only 3D printed stuff. Just making a little mark, and then I'm just going to run the soldering iron through just to open up the hole, just so this will fit through that way. I've already discussed, no, I'm not going into it, you've seen it from the beginning, I've cut that off. I may be able to use this bit as well, just to extra screw it in. No, I don't think I'm going to need that actually, forget I said that. Because this hole, as long as I don't make the hole too big, it'll be fine. Right, a very clean soldering iron. You don't want any solder on your iron for this, and ideally you could do with getting an old tip, but it's such a small hole, I'm going to be in and out. I want it facing upwards a little bit. Alright, so just lining up the soldering iron and just a little press and out. Don't be tempted to go mental, because you never know. You can make the hole bigger, but you can't make it bloody smaller. Well, you can with a bit of hot glue, I suppose, but just give that a second to cool down, and it'll only take a second, but I can still feel with my fingers it's still a bit warm. Easiest way is put some metal in, and the metal will conduct the heat. Right, now let's see if that, I think this needs to be a little bit bigger. I want it to be tight, right, but on this bit mostly, this extra little plasticky bit, and I think No, it's going to be too tight because I'm going to want it to slide a little bit. Oops, and you do not want to pull off that UFL connector, so I'm not going to yank, I'm going to push from this end because yeah, that's too small still. Come on out. That's it, just check I didn't bust it or bend it. No, I need to make that hole a little bit bigger, which is fine. Now I think I've just made it too bloody big, but like I said, it's not the end of the world because we can always put a dab of hot glue if needed. If needed. Just plonk something in here to cool it down. Alright. Well, we know that's going to... Actually, don't that look neat? Don't that look bloody neat, that hole? I mean, I know it's only a hole, but bloody hell, it looks really neat. Oh, that's snug. That's perfect. That is so snug and perfect. I can move it a little bit for adjustments, but that feels so snug and perfect there. Oh, I'm happy with that. Right, leave it all the way up. Now this bit, alright, please get it right in one go. Because if you don't know, if you're new, alright, these UFL connectors, ULF connectors, in this side, on the antenna, there's a tiny in the middle. You won't see it, a tiny little pin, and it's tiny. I'll rephrase that. It's like getting backwards. There's like a little tunnel, a hole, tiny little metal protruding hole, and on this side there's a pin, right? And they have to be lined up. You will hear them click if you get it right, but if you get it wrong and bend that pin over on there, you're screwed, right? Unless you're really good, because you can replace these, but it's a lot of messing about. A lot of messing about. So it's best to get it in one, and when they're on, leave the bloody things on. And the easiest way I've found is to basically wobble it. I'm just wobble it into place, get my finger on top, and then hoping. No. You see, it is one of them horrible. These should be MMCX connectors, which is just pushing plug and play almost. Don't know if you heard that click, but I bloody well did. And then get this bit. I'm using metal here at this point. Get this bit, and now I'm switching back to wood, and wrap it over the connector, and underneath here, I won't even attempt to show you with this camera, underneath here there's like a little pin sticking out, and you try and get it into that hole, and it can be as fiddly as fuck. That's why using wood is best. Using some sort of stick is best. Right, did that go in? It's lined up close, but it's not in. So what I'm going to do is loosen these screws a little bit more, these end screws. Not the end of the world, like I said, this plate is stuck down anyway. Just trying to get it lined up. Don't know if you heard that click. Probably not with this camera, but I just heard it click into place. So now I can fasten these screws down again. Alright, while we're here, I'll just double check these back ones, make sure they're snug. Should always check all these screws. Right, now I'll take my sticker off. because like I said, this thing gets hot at times, so this would have just melted off anyway. Keep it, because it's got a QR code on, just in case I need it for something. Right, now, odds over here. Now we can mount it. Let's see, so help if you got the bloody thing the right way around, and I zoomed out a little bit again so you could see. Right, let's just move that over there again, just for a second. This cable I'm running underneath. These screws are a bit too long, to say the least, but this cable's a bit too long, but it's not going to do any harm. Just going to lift up that flight control board, make life easier to get it in. Slide that down again. Just adjust some of these wires. Slide some of them wires down a little bit. I mean, this is just trying to be a bit extra fancy. It's not a necessity. I mean, the wires aren't going to fall out. It's one of them things, case of you just want it to look pretty. Right, now the camera. Yeah, I'm going to run the camera through the centre of there, run it round that side and to there. Yeah, I'm happy with that. And it'll just run across there, just under there. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm hoping, I'm still don't know where I'm going to put this bloody buzzer though. Will it fit in there? Under there? Well, the buzzer will fit there, but then will the camera? May need to buy a different buzzer for this. Yeah, the camera will fit and the buzzer will fit there. But will the camera hold in place there? Will I be able to get at the buttons and stuff? No. The buzzer, the buttons on the buzzer. No. So I'm gonna have to figure that out. Alright, the pads are there, but I'll come back to that. One thing at a time. We're doing the Vista unit. And this ain't gonna be in anybody's road, so just leave that there. In fact, now I can actually lock down the flight control board, lock down the Vista. Yeah, if you see there now, why I put them extra screw, I don't know if you'll see on the camera actually. Nah, the props are good. Hope you can see underneath the Vista, there's a big gap there. So the air is going to float, the air is going to circulate. And I've got plenty of room for them cables, so yeah. This will have to come out a little bit more. Yeah, that'll fit just on there like that. So that's gonna work when I push them. Just do it gently for now. So that's gonna work perfect. So I'm happy with that. Take that off at the moment because actually, no, yeah, we need to secure the Vista down. Yeah, we need to lock down the Vista. So I'm going to put some, but I'll tell you what. Will they fit? No, didn't think so. Oh, I'll tell you what I have got here, just on my bench. Oh, these are tiny. Look at these, little, best if you're in shot, little brass nuts, so to speak. Once again, you don't really want plastic on here. These are like little spacers, but I reckon Yeah, a little wet fan. Oh, then I can even get, oh actually, yeah, then I can get a board. Have I got a little micro board kicking about anywhere? There's one. I can get an extra board just down there just to mount the Crossfire Nano, which I know I haven't done yet, but we'll get there. Oh, I just realised these are all different bloody sizes I've got here. I have to make sure I get the right sizes. Bloody hell. Little, big, little, big. That's a big one, that's a big one. Ah, it's these ones. I've got a little tray with a few of these things in, that's all. Right, now just to tighten them up, I'm just going to mount that on there so it don't wobble about, and let go of that, keep a hold of the camera, and go in from the back with, if I can find one, screwdriver. That's tight. That's tight. That's tight. That's tight. Right, the nuts are nice and tight at the bottom. Now we just need to, bloody hell, fiddly jobs, just need to tighten these up. And I don't think I've got, oh yeah I have, haha. I said I didn't think I had one that was the right size. I could have put a little bit of Loctite on there, but I think that, in fact I know that's not bloody going anywhere. That ain't going anywhere. Now will I still be able to get at the USB if I do use these for extra protection? Yes. So I'll be putting them on. Yeah, I'll be putting them on. But I will need to add them, no, them shims. No you don't, you just slide that on that way and then the shim goes on that side, didn't it? Yeah. Right, anyhow, so yeah, did we do all four? That's the Vista in, yeah. Oh. Yeah, that's the Vista in, and now somewhere, that's no good, that's a threaded one. We need a loose one. Have I got one handy? No. Gonna have to go into, I'm gonna have to rummage for one. So I need like a little, oh yeah, one of them that I can slide on to connect my Crossfire Nano to. I'm going to do a jump shot because I'm going to have to wander around my bloody bench trying to find the bloody thing. Alright, because I know I've got some somewhere the right size. Okay, jump shot. Okay then, I found one. Right, at the same time, I've just pushed my antenna in, my Crossfire antenna. Alright, just pushed it in that little plastic mounty bit, that's now. But what I've done is I've run the antenna cable underneath the Vista, alright, to come out to sit on top like that, so everything's nice and neat. You don't have to do it that way, that's just me being pedantic. And then the receiver will fit on there and everything, but I'm going to get it wired up first. Alright. If you don't know how to wire a, I'll tell you what, I'll leave a picture with which wires do what. Alright, you've got your ground, your 5 volts, channel 1 I think it's called is TX, and the last one is RX. Alright, but that's if you're using a nano, and I think this cable's going to be too long, but yeah, that's going to sit on there. Cable will run to the, yeah, it's going to be a little bit too long, this cable. Let's just pop that there. Yeah. About there. Let's cut it down, just cut a bit off. I'll just snip a bit off because it's going to be way too long. I know I'm off shot again, I'm just, because my bin is down there. And when I'm snipping little bits, I try and snip it all into the bin. So I'll just tin these up. We've covered that. Let's put a bit of solder on the edges, and just make sure your wires haven't got any little bits sticking out. And also I'll solder these pads. Oh, I'll say this now because I forgot to mention it. Right, the Vista, I've got it plugged in here. Right, but when it comes round to plugging this into the computer and setting up my Betaflight and everything in my flight control board, I'll be unplugging the Vista. Right, which is quite handy. But what I've done in the past, right, is do not solder up your live wire. Leave your live wire, if you haven't got a plug, leave your live wire from your Vista unsoldered until you have 100% set up your Betaflight, because this, as I said before, gets hot. So it's best to leave it unpowered while you set up. You could actually just leave it till last, set up your Betaflight and then connect up your Vista. But all I'll be doing is unplugging that, setting up my Betaflight settings, plugging it back in, and then dealing with the Vista, because you have to plug it into the DJI Assistant 2 now and update it basically. Alright, but it gets hot, so you're better off leaving it unsoldered, or just leave the power cable unsoldered until you've set up your Betaflight. Okay, right, that's that little bit covered. Right, now just going to do these, solder up the receiver. Can't get my words in, just move that camera out the road again. Now, as we look at, I'm on a foot, I'm going to have to turn this round, I'm in a bad position for soldering stuff up here. If you remember these pads here, we're going to use the top one, the second one in, and the third one in, right, which will be your ground, your 5 volts and your RX1, and then over on this side we're going to use the second one in, which is TX1. And once again, right, just like the Vista, from your transmitter the TX goes to the RX goes to the TX. In other words, one's transmitting and one's receiving. Okay, right, let me just tin these wires up and we'll get that sorted, and we'll get that, and we're nearly there. Nearly there for Betaflight. Oh, I forgot to turn my bloody soldering iron up again. Luckily it don't take long to get hot. So is it, I can tell you while I'm here? No, I've told you I've done that. I've just I'll say one thing, when you actually put in your Crossfire Nano or your R9M, whatever it is you're using, into the TPU mount, which you can't see now, it's down there, alright, where I've mounted the antenna. It's quite tight, you have to give it a bit of flex. Now if you're worried about that, if you put a heater, like if you a hairdryer will do on it, it softens the plastic up and you can just bend it a little bit, slide your antenna in, and then put it back to where you want it, and when it dries or cools down, when it cools down, it will just go rock hard again. That's also a great way for hot glue. If you've got hot glue everywhere, just heat it up a little bit, don't go mental, heat it up a little bit and it'll scrape off. There you go. Another little tip that you didn't ask for, that you got. Right, talking about tips, let's just get some soldering iron on this one, some solder on this tip. Just tin up these wires. Right, just move them out the road, and while we're here I'll just do this flight control board, just clean that up again. Right, and it was the first 3, and what was it? Second one in, wasn't it? The first 3 and the second one in. Right then, so we'll solder this straight on first before we start running stuff and messing stuff about. So we've got the ground. Fiddly jobs. I'm going to do that back one first. The back one was TX, so I want the RX wire off my receiver of my Nano, which happens to be my last one. I'm going to do this first, so it's the other wires that have been in the road, you see. So yeah, so this first one in is TX, so I'm soldering up the RX from the Nano. Just hold that with my fingers. I've got the tweezers out, but I don't need them. Plenty of room. And then we can go along. The first one in is the black, which is your ground. The next one in is power, and then we've got the TX going to the RX. Which is the last one. I want any solder left on my tip then, that's why that one was a bit tricky. Right, now you could have tilted the wires and stuff, but I'll have plenty of play, so I can just easily just make a little loop there, just to make a bit of room and stuff and everything. Right, I'll turn this back round this way now. Just going to move them tweezers out the road because didn't need them. Didn't need them. Turn the soldering iron down. Right, now let's figure out how we're going to do this. I'm going to have that mounted on there and on here. Like that. That'll go there out the road. That'll be perfect actually. So we're going to run it through the wires or around the wires. I think the best bet would be to run this straight through there actually. And pop it down. Yeah, I think that'll be the best way. Straight through there. Just like that. Don't need to turn it round. So that'll run there. So this is the cable from the antenna. And it's another one of them UFL connectors. We've covered that with the tiny little pins and stuff, so you have to be careful. I hate doing this job. I hate it. Oh, got the click. Right, now I advise stop. Now you can put whatever you want on here, a bit of tape, a bit of heat shrink or anything. I like to use I can never pronounce it, this stuff. Kapton tape, Kapton. I can never pronounce it. Kapton tape. One, it's extremely high heat resistant. Two, you can see through it, so it's just wrapping it. Just helps to hold everything in place. I've already actually bound this receiver to my transmitter. Right, so I don't have to panic getting at the bind button, but if I did have to get at the bind button for any reason, I can see through this stuff and I can see where the bind button is. Now if I'd have put some electrical tape around, which would have worked just as well, or some heat shrink which would have worked just as well, I would not have been able to see where the bloody band button is. Right, I'm going to use this again, but a thin piece. Just going to get a thinner one. Just getting a thinner one out, just to tape it round there before mounting it, just to help hold it in place. You could just use a zip tie. Yeah, you could use a zip tie. Yeah, you could use a bit of bloody blue tack if you wanted. But I've got this stuff out, so this is what I'm using. All I'm doing, as you can see, is lining that up. That's the advantages with 5-inch builds. You've got a bit more space to play with. Not a lot, but a bit. That's just loose. Well, it's not loose. It's just I just haven't gone mental with it. That'll go on there. I'll stick there. I'm happy with that. That's perfect. Perfect. Right, let me just put my tape away because I know I'm not going to need any more of that today. Right. We've got any little screws handy. We had a box full, were they in here? We had a bag full of little, no, don't put them back in there. But we had a box full, a packet full of little white nuts, didn't we? What the hell have I done with them? Well, I put them somewhere around here. I've no idea. Right, let's just going into the tin. That one. Keep all my nuts and bolts for me. No sweet, sorry. Just all my little fasteners, clips, nuts and bolts and stuff for M3s. Everything in here. So I'll tell you what. Just for the hell of it, because we put them brass at the bottom there, didn't we? So I think I'll put brass on the top. Why not? But smaller ones. Actually, yeah, use the smaller ones. We've got, I'll just move this off. Oh, careful of the camera, careful of the bloody camera. We've got some small ones there. There's another small one. Okay, we ain't got 4 small ones, so we'll use 4 big ones. Get me a little tool. This is overkill. I could have just used a little plastic nut here, but I've used brass on the rest, so might as well use brass for the rest of them. Little brass nuts. And it's going to look pretty from the side, you see. Now you're all laughing thinking, why the hell do you care if it's pretty or not? I don't, but it will. There you go. That's that down there, that's that fan. Pack them little bits away. Bloody hell, come on. I think I've told you before, mentioned it before, get yourself one of these little magnets and you can pick all your stuff up, put it in your bag, wipe your finger off and they're all in there in one go. I use that a lot. Plus it's great for being lazy. You drop a screw on the floor and you extend it, you don't even have to bend down, you just bonk. I keep it right next to my bench, right there. Right, just put them back on the tin. I've got a hell of a lot of clearing up to do when I finish this. Right, a bloody buzzer. Where am I gonna put the buzzer? I'm gonna come back to the buzzer later on, because we're just about finished here. We're just about finished. All I'd have to do now is mount the camera and start setting stuff up, because yeah. Oh, I'll just put them on, put them flashy bits on. Let's see if we can remember which way these things go. That go on there, I think. No, that's... Is that right? Can't remember now. No, that's not right. That's not right. Can't remember how these went on. Let's just do a rough fit. That would have to be up a bit. I'll try putting that on there. Put that on there. This isn't a necessity. No, that's not going to work like that either. Oh jeez, can't remember how I connected this bloody thing up. I'll push that to about there, just leave it loose. I'm not going to bother with these. I didn't like them anyhow, I wasn't sure what they was for. Just going to push them down loose. I mean, they're not going to go far, are they? And then that bit will go on there. Push the camera back down, the antenna. No, this part here will help actually let me just hold that camera and see how that looks from that side. Just figured out where that spacer goes. The spacer definitely goes at the bottom there, so bugger it, seeing as we've got it, we'll use it. One spacer goes in there, the other spacer, oh, watch the camera again, watch the bloody camera. The other spacer goes, no it can't do because that's not going to fit. No, that's not going to fit. Ah, fuck it. Fuck it. I'm not bothered. Right, these plastic little things, I'm not using them. Didn't like them in the first bloody place anyhow. Just going to leave them on loose. Well, they're not loose. They're hooked over, as you can see. But just going to leave them and push them into place like that. Suppose you could. No. No, I'm not using these. I didn't like them in the first bloody place, so I'm not using them. If you build this frame and you want to use them, that's fine by me, but I don't want them and I don't want to use them. And I forgot to run my... Shit. You have to run your power cable up and out through there, being careful not to rip off your bloody antenna for you. There. This is getting tighter and tighter because I've turned this round, so I'm going to have to do a little bit more jiggery pokery because I turned this round. So I'm going to cut this piece out because remember I turned everything over, and so I'll cut that piece out there, run that through there. May even have something to do with how I mounted my receiver, but see if this goes down this time. Ah, that looks flatter. wants to come up a bit, up a bit. I can still get at me USB, well, USB-C. Cables aren't getting crushed out. Push that down flush, which it is now. Right, that can just fit there. Now, will the top plate go on after all this messing about? Because don't forget, I've changed stuff round and I'm a bit worried about this top plate now. I may have to not use these green things because I'm a bit worried about the top plate. I'm also worried about that. So that bit's coming off. And that bit's coming off. There. That'll fit down there. Ah, that's nice. Yeah, I like that now. Right, where's the top plate? I may have to wiggle that around. Yeah, because I've got these green supporters too high now. Push them down a bit then, to where they're meant to be, I suppose. Because I took them standoff things off, didn't I? That's why I didn't want to do jump shots. Because you will come across these problems and you'll wonder what the hell to do. And I've said it before and I'm going to say it again, I hate videos where they come across a problem and then 2 seconds later the problem's fixed and it's just a jump shot. I want people to see how to get round stuff. That's locked in nice and tight. Let's just try that plate again. That's still... You see, this ain't gonna work because of how I mounted that receiver, my receiver. Everything's getting pushed up. Everything's getting pushed up, and it's you won't get the base plate on nice and level. There's too much of a bend. You could push it on really tight and screw it in, but I want stuff to be fitting. I don't just want it to be whacked on super hard. So I'm just gonna jigger about a bit. I think I'm gonna have to leave these things off. Alright, because like I said, and I keep saying, it's really designed, these things, for the air unit, and it'd fit. And I won't be messing about like this. And I may, in fact I have to lower this. I have to lower it. It's too high. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a jump shot because you don't need to see that. And I'll tell you exactly what I'm going to do. These 4 screws here, I'm going to take them out, these 4 nuts. The ones underneath, which are the same as these, I'm going to replace with smaller ones. Then put this back on, fasten it all back up again, and it'll drop it maybe 2-3 millimeters, maybe 2 millimeters, and that'll be enough just to smooth everything out again. And I might even, in fact that bit I'll do now, I'm just going to trim that edge again on here, because it's not so much just the corner edge. Just trimming these edges. There. Right, so that's what I'm going to do now. So that's now just swapping screws round. So jump shot. Okay then, the nuts under here, these 4 here, I've replaced them with just slightly smaller ones, maybe half the thickness. Just holding down the Vista, and then I put the bracket with the receiver on top, and then just put the big ones back on again for the top part. So I've just reduced it a little bit, and now just doing that one thing. Now the top plate, just push that way down, the top plate actually fits Alright, so everything's great. That's that one small little thing I did, was change 4 nuts out, put slightly smaller ones on. This bloody capacitor doesn't help though, because it's in the worst possible place. I should have unsoldered the capacitor, ran 2 wires off it and mounted, because what I do on some of my things, I mount the capacitor at the back. I heat shrink it, make sure it's protected, and then just run the wires through and solder them on, because there's no reason why the capacitor has to be there. But I didn't, and I'm not gonna strip everything down again just to get at it. It fits, so it's fine. In case you're wondering, this wire was just from the Vista. I've just unplugged it for the reasons what I mentioned about while I do the flight control board and everything, set Betaflight up. That's why I haven't fastened down Betaflight. I haven't fastened down this flight control board yet, so I can just lift it up a little bit. Makes it easier to plug this cable back in again. Alright, so I'll get back to that. Now, if you're wondering about that, I just put a bit of tape around the camera to stop, just to stop it from wobbling about everywhere. Alright, so that's the main parts done. Alright, now we're going to set up Betaflight, alright, and then also set up the Vista. Alright, but I'm doing the Vista last. Alright, I want to go through all the messing about with Betaflight first. Alright, and then once all that's set up, then I'll plug the Vista in, or if you're not using a plug, then you solder on your wire for your Vista to power it, and then go through the Vista settings as quick as you can because it gets hot. But for now, we're going to go sort out Betaflight, and then sort out the Vista, then we're ready to fly. But that will be in the next part.